Hello and welcome everyone, I'm Jasper and this is the PBNJcast where we explore careers, ideas and unique stories. I'm super thankful for you investing time to broaden your perspective and joining me in the journey as we better appreciate the process of finding and adding value in work. Today, I'm so fortunate to have Hock here. Hock is a consultant dermatologist. Not only that, he's been a big part of my life. He's somewhat of a mentor for me, and definitely has so much wisdom and insight. And I'm very grateful that he's willing to join us today. How you going, Hock?
Hi, Jasper. Thank you very much for having me. It's exciting, and I congratulate you on this initiative that you have. I'm sure that it will be an encouragement and a blessing to many people. So well done.
Thanks. We'll see how it goes. Don't thank me yet. You might regret this in a moment.
I'm sure we won't.
For people that don't know you, could you please give them an introduction to your professional background?
Sure. So yes, as Jasper mentioned, my name is Hock. So I trained in dermatology after having gone through medical school in the local university, and then entered a formal training program for 4 years in dermatology in Australia. And so now, as Jasper mentioned, I work as a consultant dermatologist, mainly in a group private practice, but also as one of the consultants in one of the teaching hospitals.
That's cool. And he's still willing to share his story, as no matter how busy he is.
I always have time for you, Jasper.
Thanks, mate. All right, so let's kick it off. Why did you choose dermatology, or why even medicine to begin with?
Sure. I was not one of these who grew up from the age of 5 wanting to do medicine. My ethos coming from family was just to work hard, study hard, and basically to do as well as I could so that the range of options would be as great as one could have it. So really, by God's grace, I did well enough in finishing school. And then I thought actually medicine is an area of expansion of always the frontier areas of medicine, and an area where really we could have the ability to help people as well. And it's also a qualification or set of training that is quite portable and can be really used in different parts of the world. So that's really probably why I studied medicine. As for dermatology itself, I actually did the rounds as a junior doctor in the hospitals for a number of years, and then realized that dermatology is a specialty which has a very nice mixture of medical, surgical, and aesthetic components. And for me, that was very attractive. I had excluded certain specialties, including long, big surgeries where you had to stand for 8 hours in theatre. That wasn't me. I also excluded areas where there would be a real tax on other aspects of my life with constant after hours calls, etc. And so really dermatology fitted the bill for me.
So you knew what you wanted in terms of work-life balance, and you knew yourself what would engage you in terms of like, this is something that's interesting for you. It ticked off a lot of your different avenues, and it was a combination of your skills. Would you say that?
Yes, I think I realized that there's a lot more to life than work, although work is a very important component. And certainly that realization has become clearer and stronger and deeper with the years. But certainly at the time of choosing which area to go into, I had sufficient realization, I suppose, to realize that I don't want to be working 16 hours a day every day at my work, that there was a lot more to life than that.
That's good to hear. And here you are with that extra time. You're here with me chatting. And I'm glad that you knew that to begin with. And to whoever's listening that wants to do medicine, it doesn't have to be working nonstop. I'm sure there were grinding aspects where there were the long yards, and it's still, it doesn't make it rainbows and sunshines now that you're a consultant dermatologist.
Sure. Yeah, I think certainly early on the P's, generally one would have to go through some years where it is not ideal, where the hours are long, doing even things that we don't necessarily particularly like or enjoy. But I think it gives good grounding. Certainly for me, I went through certain terms and attachments that weren't necessarily related to dermatology. But looking back, I've constantly been thankful that I did do those terms, because they actually gave me a broader, deeper, and wider understanding of humanity in the setting of illness and well-being. And to this day, that sort of realization, knowledge, and experience has served me well in dermatology.
It's very profound. Could you please elaborate on that understanding of humanity and well-being?
Well, for instance, I did quite a lot of geriatrics and rehabilitation medicine before I actually entered into dermatology. And up to today, I mean, the way I am able to understand, particularly an older patient, some of the struggles she might be going through, some of the other concerns that he might have as a whole person, rather than just someone with a skin condition, has actually helped me to not only understand how the dermatological problem affects him or her, but actually formulate or shape management according to that understanding as well. So sometimes we can be so focused on the disease entity or just from our specialty that we don't appreciate how difficult it might be that our suggested management actually can be implemented, especially by an older person. Maybe she's living on her own. Maybe there's a little bit of early cognitive impairment, etc. So that experience, as I say, has actually served me well even today.
Being able to adapt according to your patient.
Yes, that's right. So we will have principles, general principles of management treatment, but to be able to almost like fine tune it to the person, almost in the way a bespoke sort of approach, is actually very important and very useful. And that again, on top of that, actually understanding a person as an entire being with his or her belief systems, worldviews, and mindsets, that is important to take into account as well, without jeopardizing the management and the optimal outcome of treatment.
Would you say those are the best parts of being a dermatologist?
It's certainly certainly some of the most exciting parts, and the parts that actually probably has kept me going for all these years. I won't tell you how many years, Jasper. Let's just say it's been a few years.
A few years.
Yeah. But no, I found dermatology to be really interesting specialty within medicine to be engaged in. I mean, of course, like everyone else, or most other people, there are days when I wish I was doing something else. But on most days, I'm very grateful that I've been given the opportunity to practice in this area of work.
Then going on that note, why dermatology? Why do you still do it? I would understand that you're probably at this stage where you're very well established, you're experienced, and you could probably do other things even outside of medicine.
Well, dermatology is, to me, of course I speak from a very biased viewpoint, it's a challenging specialty because, for a start, the skin is the largest organ of our body. Yeah. It is highly visible. So unlike perhaps other areas of medicine where the disease, the pathology is perhaps hidden in a way or not easily viewed or assessed or accessible by even the patient herself. If you have a rash, you have a skin growth or disease, it's there to be seen by the person, by everyone, generally. And so that has a lot of emotional aspects to it. If it's not getting better quickly, if the treatment is not working in the manner or the speed in which the patient is hopeful that it will work, It's not that we want to bluff or, deceive the patient, but in other areas of medicine, we could sort of hold their hands a bit more and say, look, it will get better and so on. But this is very visible. And so if it's not better, it's not better. And so it's actually a lot, in a way, more challenging to manage. So that is a challenge, but it also adds that impetus to do as well as we can to help the individual. And also skin, because there's an aesthetic component as well. I mean, we know that the, cosmetic aesthetic is a truly multi-billion dollar industry around the world. So there's a lot of different voices, if you like, that an individual could potentially hear, a lot they can read about. And it is quite a challenge sometimes to sort of help the patient or the individual navigate through all this noise and different voices to actually come to and implement the best management plan for the individual. And we know about everyone consulting Dr. Google. We know about all that sort of looking up things even before they come. And particularly for dermatology, because it's very visible, they can match images and say, come in and say, this is what I have, this is what treatment I need. But obviously they may not, as a non-dermatologist, have the ability to assess the nuances for the treatment, for the diagnosis and treatment. And I guess that's where, as a consultant dermatologist, we come in to help them. Yeah. The other aspect of your question as to why I'm still doing, I see this as it's in some sense a means to an end. It is not the end. Dermatology is by no means the end for me. It is a very helpful, and it has been a very rewarding in various aspects platform to express what my worldview of life. And it allows me to come in contact with many people of all generations and ages over the years, and actually then be given the opportunity to then establish relationships, meaningful relationships with different individuals as well, as we are led to or as we are prompted to do so. Even just today, actually, this morning, we saw a young chap with obviously a skin condition came with mum. They are actually originally from another country, and he is in later years of high school and expressed an interest in possibly entering medical school. And with mum's agreement and indeed encouragement, we will probably have a chat with the young man and just encourage him, and perhaps when the time comes, sort of do a practice mock interview for his entry requirements in medical school. Similarly, I am what they call a careers mentor at one of the local universities, where we catch up on a regular basis, not necessarily very often, but certainly on a regular basis with certain medical students, to give them exposure and hopefully a little bit of experience and wisdom on what it means to be a practitioner of medicine in the field. And I find that very rewarding, to basically impart and come alongside and help, if you like, the next generation.
Thank you. I was going to save this to the end, but thanks for what you do. I really appreciate it. And I definitely see your heart in terms of mentoring, and I experience it myself. I'm glad that you're able to, do it with other people and through your work as well.
It's always been a privilege and a pleasure, Jasper.
And with I think we've kind of gone through like why you chose it, why you still do it, and best parts, and we've touched a bit on the worst parts of it. Would there be anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, because it's such like so many other areas of medicine and certainly many other professions, when there is direct people contact constantly, you do get people doubt at times. And one of the ways I deal with that is to take even just short breaks of 3-day weekends or even weekends, and just go to a space where I'm either alone or just alone with my spouse, and just go to a place where I'm nobody knows us and so on, and just be lost, as it were, in either a crowd or lost in a sort of quiet space. And I find that that's a way for me to recharge as well. Yes, so we do get peopled out, and that can be a challenge, because obviously we want to be functioning as well and as efficiently as we can, to provide the best service for individuals.
That burnout aspect.
Yes, we certainly don't want to be burnt out, and I suppose to be aware of even early signs of that and address that rather than leave it too late.
Would you say that's exclusively for dermatology for you?
No, not at all. It's hardly exclusive for dermatology. It's hardly exclusive for medicine. I think in many areas of work, that's the case. And it really depends also on how a person is made up, how they're wired and created. Some people are a lot more people orientated, others are more task orientated. And I think this is just talking outside of dermatology medicine. But I think if someone in your audience are considering what profession or what trade to pursue, I think one of the considerations is to have an understanding how the person is wired and created, what their personality is, what their interests are, and actually incorporate that into their choice, because work or profession is important, but it is only one aspect of a holistic life.
In terms of, I know you've touched on it in part, but if you could sum up certain characteristics that would suit dermatology as a profession and certain characteristics that wouldn't, what list would you give?
That's I think, as I mentioned before, I think it would be good if the person were a very people-orientated individual, someone who has an interest or finds that they're energized by this combination of some practical hands-on things like doing skin surgery, a sense of beauty and aesthetics, because obviously with the skin that's very visible and very important, as well as the sort of intellectual rigor of diagnosis, managing, keeping up with what is the latest. Of course, that applies to many areas of work as well. But I think those are quite important qualities in dermatology to be an effective dermatologist. But as well as that, and I come back, this is really it also allows a very good platform to actually impart to those who are coming after me, and just encourage and come alongside the next generation. It works very well, I think, in dermatology, as I'm sure it does in many areas. Yes, so I think that that probably are some of the aspects that I find very positive about dermatology, and really gives some of the reasons why I'm still in the game.
And the characteristics you look for when you, correct me if I'm wrong, but part of the process of becoming a dermatologist is needing the approval from the consultants that you are under. Is that correct? So do you also have to help in that process, helping trainees become a consultant?
Yes. So in the Australian system, the Australasian College of Dermatologists is given the task and the responsibility to appoint medically qualified individuals to train in dermatology, to become specialist dermatologists. It's what we call a national selection process. So everyone from any state or any place within Australia is able to apply. And then, of course, there's a short list of individuals who are then interviewed centrally. So I've been involved in that process on a number of occasions at the national selection panel. And so there's certain aspects that I guess we look for in an individual whom we believe will become a a good and productive dermatologist in the many years ahead of him or her.
Would you say, you mentioned the people caring aspect and the mentoring aspect, would you say that would be the most important one?
I think certainly for me, that are two very important aspects. Of course, some will be more research or academically orientated, to be involved in dermatology departments in universities. That's obviously important to have a whole spectrum of colleagues. But in Australia, by and large, the vast majority of dermatologists are clinicians. In other words, who are engaged in clinical practice, people one-on-one, people with individuals. So I think as we stand now, it's really important that someone is people-orientated. That's one of the key requirements or desired aspects.
That does make sense. Yeah, I wouldn't want to see someone who doesn't see me as a human and only just sees me as a problem.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
What about red flags? Being on the board and knowing what you know, what characteristics are you like, oh, I'm not sure whether this guy should or girl should continue on being a dermatologist?
I think the real red flags are lack of integrity, lack of honesty, poor work ethics. I think those are obvious, which really apply in any area where you want to do well. That for me is there are much greater impediments to progress and continuation than many other things. Obviously, having more of a natural knack to be able to interact with people and also have manual eye-hand coordination for the dermatological surgery and so it would be important. But really that can be learned and can be trained. It might take someone a bit longer if they don't have the natural aptitude. But if someone is dishonest, someone is not a team player where they are very selfish, I would have a problem with someone like that continuing.
You heard that, everyone. So it doesn't matter if you don't have the specific skills, your hand-eye coordination. Most important with Dr. Hock here is your values and your ethics.
I think that, to me, that applies to life, doesn't it? I think the character of an individual is much more important than the skill set, because skills can be developed and we can train a person in that. But if someone's character or natural inclinations are less than sort of altruistic or very self-serving, that's a problem.
That's fair. There seems to be a theme here where you don't just segment, okay, this is work. As long as you're professional at work, it's fine. It's who you are that you bring to work.
Absolutely.
As well.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thanks for that.
And I think we're all on a journey, but for me, understanding that more, that is not compartmentalized, it's not silos in life and all segmented, but life is just life. You just flow who you are, your worldview, your values flow through every aspect of life, whether it's in the marketplace, in the family setting, in social activities, if someone has a religious sort of a faith base, and we're in a faith setting like a church or a temple, I think it's important that all be consistent. And it's just, to me, different expressions or different platforms, essentially the same self, the same individual.
That's great. That was part 1. Thanks again for being here. And if you'd like to give me any feedback, ideas, guest suggestions, or even like to share your journey yourself, please do email me at thepbandjcast@gmail.com. And before you go, if you think anyone else could benefit from listening, please do share this or help the algorithms by subscribing and chucking a like so it can reach others. I'll see you at part 2.